That's fine. At the national level, Congress, as you know, is divided, and within Congress, it's divided, and even within the parties, much is divided. So there's lots of division. Similarly, in Minnesota, our legislature is divided, and within parties, some divisions. So lots of issues up in the air, and that's why we really want to focus on what we're voting for here. So we've got congressional seats. As you know, our two senators are not up for election this time. Fortunately, they're in place. But congressional seats and all of our legislative seats in Minnesota, and then statewide elections for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, auditor. And then we have a bunch of county-wide elections, and each county is different. Whoops, but they all have elections. I know Hennepin County the best, and we have a lot of elections up, not only for county attorney and county sheriff, but also county commissioners, which is something that we often don't keep track of. But at least two of the counties have races, and it's something we don't think about, but the counties have a lot of money and make a lot of important decisions, so it's worth paying attention to those. And then locally, each community, most communities have council elections and school board elections. And these days, that makes a difference. That's very important, what's happening on our school boards and in our school districts. So all of that matters. That's why we want to talk about values today. And Cindy is going to help us think through and share what issues, justice issues, big issues, do we all care about, and what's our value about those? And particularly, I think in the background, we're all worrying about the state of our democracy. And so these votes we're going to make are going to really matter, because this is a crucial time for all of us. Plus, we all just got redistricted. And even if you'll still vote in the same place, the name of your state district, the number of your state district may have changed, and therefore the candidates are likely to have changed. And for some of us, I'm not sure anyone here, even your congressional district may have changed, because some of those have also been redistricted. So all of that is to say it matters. And our goal today is not to convince you to vote, because we know you are all going to vote. We feel pretty confident of that, but to convince us all how we can get even more involved. So Cindy.
Okay. I'd like to start out by asking you for suggestions of what values we have for our county, state, and nation that will be relevant in the midterm elections, and we'll capture those on the board. So what are the issues we care about, and what value do we have about it?
Name one.
Yeah.
Housing.
And the people on Zoom can't hear us.
Oh, good point. Okay, education and the attempt to muffle our real history.
Yes.
What was that last one?
Education and true history, true education, true history, and the question of banning.
And for the second one, though, Cindy, if you want the folks online to see that, you'll need to use Black.
Oh, all right. Well,
Change of plan.
change of plan. Okay.
And just a note,
Or just write it.
a challenge to all of us as we talk about our values is not just to say what we're against, but to say what we're for. So for instance, with education, we want all of our children in our state, in our school districts, whatever, to learn the true history of our country. And we want all of them to have access to appropriate books and materials. Does that fit?
We want them to have access to the internet and electronic devices.
A core value for participation that Faith in Minnesota stresses is really affirming the dignity of all voters and the need for a multiracial democracy that really respects the equality of all of us.
Absolutely.
A welcoming, inclusive country. Welcoming for you know what.
And sometimes we've been advised, and what?
And quicker.
Welcoming faster. And sometimes it helps when we're talking to people about this to be able to be more specific about when we say everyone and all, including people who live in the city, the suburbs, and rural, people who have comfortable incomes and people who do not have comfortable incomes, people of all backgrounds, races, faiths, recent immigrants. Yeah. Yes, gender identity, family configuration.
I think the natural disaster that we saw of this last week really shows us that we need to be more assertive and quick acting with climate change. All these things on the board don't mean anything if we don't have the correct environment. That's not a good word. A sustainable environment in which to live. All those things up there are all affected by having a sustainable environment.
Thanks.
All right, I don't know if it's up there yet, but reproductive health, women's right to choose. Maybe you can say that better than I.
No, I think.
Bigger? Yeah.
I love how this has worked out. Originally, I was going to have to do the writing.
Maybe you can do the talking and I'll do the writing. It's not great, but we'll get there.
Arlene, you said housing. Do you want to say a
Well,
little more?
yes, I want to say more affordable housing
Okay.
in, which is,
So that's a value that everybody, all people need safe, affordable housing. Any others? This is a great start.
Yes.
These are the things.
Mass transportation.
Oh, good. Say it again.
Transportation to neighborhoods that have been missed lately.
So, again, for everybody needs to be able to get to work, to family, to buy necessities.
Yeah, picking up on Dennis's, none of these would matter if we don't have the sustainable environment. None of these will matter if we aren't smart in our in observing international law and decency of one nation to another and play the Ukraine's very tricky situation. Play it right, but to respect boundaries of nations and I'll put the positive part, the decent nations treat other nations around them decently. That goes for us too.
That's great. Thank you. That's one of, in a sense, of the burdens that we have for being such a big and wealthy and powerful country, that everything we do affects the whole world. It's quite a responsibility. And we've got up there the need for a multiracial democracy, but does anyone want to say anything more about voting, since that's our topic today?
I know, but you have affordable health care.
No.
Okay.
Affordable health care for everyone.
Absolutely.
I mean, in addition to making sure that, they might be able to hear me. In addition to making sure that folks have clear voter information and safe access to polls, where folks don't feel intimidated and have trust in the polls. I think that's one part of it. And that feels like a part where we are swimming upstream to work against some pretty difficult forces. Equally, something that we all can do and should do is to make sure that the people in our lives do get out and vote. And don't feel apathetic or lose hope. And I am guessing that there is more to be gained there in voter turnout efforts than there is in, the national stuff's important and it's heinous and I care a lot about it, but myself, I care a lot about the millennials in my life and making sure that they're getting out to the polls, and the Gen Xers in my life, making sure that they're getting out. And I hope those of you with peers who you think may or may not vote because it's a midterm, get on them, invite them to go with you, because there's some low-hanging fruit, perhaps, that we could. And a lot of folks aren't feeling hopeful right now, so just making sure that we keep that alive.
Brennan brings up a very important point that I've read the statistics of, that in midterm elections, generally 30 to 40% of people do not vote down ballot. They get the top offices, but they forget about the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the sheriffs, et cetera, et cetera. So judges, school districts, school boards, and some of my door knocking, I've run across people who are against critical race theory. They're just upset about their school boards and want to vote them out. So there are a myriad of issues. Pardon? City councils, yeah. All of those people we can directly impact by our votes. So it's really critical to get yourself and your peers out there to look at the elections and vote your values. Yes, Judy.
This is the first year I've done much door knocking. I did a little phoning. Katie signed me up for Faith in Minnesota a couple years ago. But something that has shocked me, we have, as we go door to door, we have a database that gives us the names of people that have voted in the surge and are likely to be sympathetic. But we've also talked to people on the street just because we're walking around in the neighborhood.
That's right.
And what has surprised me so much, and it shouldn't because I don't walk in their shoes, is that a lot of young Black people are saying, I don't vote. I'm not going to vote. They've disappointed me. So that's a real barrier. But one couple that we talked to, another volunteer and I, we talked to them a little while and talked about how they're trying to keep you from voting. And shortly afterward, the young man said, have you got some more of those brochures? And we were very happy.
Yeah.
So so many people, they don't know who Keith Ellison is. They don't know a lot about it.
They don't know a lot of them,
And when they
need to be
start to hear
informed.
about it, they do get more excited. And later we could talk about the way that the race class narrative asks us to talk about what are our shared values and who's getting in the way of them and what can we do to overcome those obstacles. That's kind of a good strategy.
Great, Judy. Thank you. Frank.
Yeah, I'll just say with regard to all these criteria on here, we have a few down at the very bottom talking about more what's going on at the level of our federal government and global issues. If anybody that you're ever talking with asks you, how much of our federal government budget goes to helping needy people around the world, the answer is about 0.5%. It's not 25%. On the other hand, it's not zero. Our government through U.S. Agency for International Development addresses a lot of these different things and myriad programs for developing countries around the world, and has some very, very good programs with private nonprofits to help work on human rights, try to end child marriage, and try to work on better food production, safer water, and reproductive rights and things like that. But that's an interesting thing about our federal government. And our post-pandemic, our federal budget has been on the order of about $6 trillion. Before that, it was more like 4 trillion. But the budget for helping needy people around the world, it's about 0.5%.
Thanks, Frank. That's really helpful. I'm just looking at, this is a great list, and I'm remembering that, Peter, I think you said welcoming and quicker process. Were you specifically speaking of immigrants? Immigration, okay, and refugees. Yes, right, okay. And I just, for the listening audience, which I think is two, we have an agenda today, and we've just talked about the values at stake, and now we're gonna, Cindy, maybe tell us a little more about why our participation matters, although we've had great input from all of you. And then we're gonna talk about change-making successes that we know this has been done in the past and can be done, and then actions we can take and commitment to do that.
So let's take a little bit of thought and consideration about what and who have been some of the barriers to achieving these values. Yes, Judy.
The really great trainings that our organization, Faith in Minnesota, has done as a branch of Isaiah have told us the distraction by billionaires and ultra-conservative people, corporations, to put the emotional, newsy kind of controversies in front of us and distract us from the tax breaks for billionaires and the voting down the measures that help the average person. We've been instructed that, a certain amount of outrage is good for energizing you, to look at what's getting in the way. And we need to name those forces that are interfering with the common values we all have for safe, thriving neighborhoods and a good life for everyone. And then move on to the solution.
Great, thank you.
Thank you,
And
Judy.
so part of what you were telling us is distraction and misinformation.
Oh,
There's lots of
yes,
it out
there's
there.
lots and lots.
Fear-mongering,
Good
Julie
point.
says.
Yeah, fear mongering.
Shelby versus Holder.
Say some more about Shelby versus Holder.
Please.
Case 20. Shelby versus Holder, Kentucky case of a county against the Attorney General, who was then Barack Obama's Attorney General, Eric Holder. And it gutted the Voting Rights Act and opened the door for what we've seen, constantly in the last 6 years, from state to state to state, locality, of finding new ways to have Jim Crow restrictions on people of color, gay community, LGBTQ people, older people, students from state to state, low income, you name it. But the attack on voting rights, that's
Yes.
that's a huge thing in the way.
And,
Yes.
and another big case is coming up in the Supreme Court this term, so.
That's right.
In regards to the number of people voting and that, it seems to me that there is more effort on restricting vote than having people vote. So there seems to be a need for incentives to get people to vote. For example, if the federal government gave every state $1,000 for every person who voted, we might not be trying to get people not to vote. We would probably try to get people to vote because all the incentives are on people trying to restrict voting. We would probably find that people that have served their time and that would probably start to get the right to vote if there was a positive incentive to move in that direction. And we don't have positive incentives.
That's great. And you hit on one of my favorite brilliant ideas is why not have part of people being on parole, one of the requirements be that they vote, instead of saying you can't vote when you're on, part of becoming a good citizen is voting.
That's right.
Okay. Any other barriers?
Any other barriers?
Citizens United?
Free flow of soft and dark money, huge amounts influencing campaigns by the rich.
Yeah, no limits on those PACs, and
That's
it's dark
right.
money, you're
That's
right.
Exactly right.
So the amount of money that's in elections is enormous.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna pass the mic to you because now we want to encourage ourselves, give ourselves hope. We all have been part of, witnesses to, and probably part of making major changes, seeing changes made over the years. What can you think of that got changed through citizen effort, however far back? Marriage equality, absolutely. Well, here's a softball one, smoking.
Yeah.
Roe versus Wade, yeah. Think of some others.
Katie, you're gonna talk about vote forward?
Yep, hold on to it. We'll get there when we talk about things we can do. Yes,
Yeah.
women getting the right to vote. Yeah,
Well,
that took a lot of years and a lot of effort. And it happened. Yes, Eileen.
for 50 years, I've been working on, notice voting with, legal in Minnesota. And our last two, microphones.
Oh, sorry.
Arlene. With our legal women voters, we were very disappointed in the last three candidates forms that we did of how few people came. And that's not usual. But the last one, which was in 45 in Wyzetta.
I was there.
And yeah, right. And the both candidates didn't come. The Democrats running came to talk, but the others didn't. And that, yes, and that was very disappointing.
Yeah.
And
so
that happened. In
that's
the-
back to the barriers. If
Yes, the
people don't show
barriers,
up, and
yes,
speak
right.
up and get listened
And
to.
one of the things that the League of Women Voters has been doing is a lot of registering voters. And hopefully that helps some.
Mhm.
But-
Okay, so we know that change can be made. All of these things here and then the barriers that we listed. It's possible that they can be changed, not overnight, but with a lot of citizen effort. For instance, reproductive rights. We know a majority of the country feels one way. That is not the way the Supreme Court seems to be going. But maybe that is changeable. Maybe it will, people will get listened to and will show up and vote. Yes, Julie.
To that point, we've seen that in several states already that have voted for reproductive rights, even though they're states. So what states were they? Yes, Kansas, yes.
Mhm.
So that has mobilized people to get out and vote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a good point in general. Very often it's one issue that somebody cares about and decides, I am going to vote because I care about that issue. And that's how change gets made.
I don't know if we're at solutions yet, but it looks like
go.
we need to expand that court as soon as possible.
So actually, what we're going to move to now is what can we, each of us, do? Now, we've got about a month left. It's not too late. Even if we haven't done anything yet, there are a whole bunch of things that could be done. So I know some of you are already doing some things. Name some of those.
Door knocking.
Door knocking for a candidate or candidates of your choice. And I will just say about that, if you've ever thought, well, I might be willing to door knock, but it sounds too hard, too threatening. It's not the walking around, it's the ringing people's doorbells and talking to them. That's the scary part. A number of us have experience doing that and found out it's not so difficult, partly because we are always sent to houses where they're pretty sure people will be open. They don't bother to send us to houses that they know are already against our candidate. And the other thing is that just now, at least the campaigns I've been working on, and probably the others too, are about to switch from voter education and I forget what they call it, but trying to figure out where people are at, to a get out the vote effort. Now they're going to be sending us to houses where people have already said, yeah, I'm leaning toward your candidate, or I'm definitely for your candidate. Now our job is to get out the vote. And that's a much easier call to make, either a phone call or a visit, just to encourage them, tell them how important they are to getting out the vote. So, and while Judy and Cindy and I have all been door knocking, and maybe some of the rest of you, Arlene, and some of us are door knocking this afternoon, and would welcome someone to walk along with us if you want to get a taste of it. So that's an option.
The thing that made it within reach was having the background. I worked with a group of 5 delegates in our little Senate district that got together last spring to support a more progressive person for the Senate seat in our district. But they've done so much research, and we have flyers, with a summary, and having that support makes it easier. Also, when I did do the phoning, so many people don't answer their phone. So that's why we've gone to door knocking, because, they can't hang up on you as fast. And our coach, who's a very inspirational person, said, don't ask if you got time, just start talking. And we mostly start talking about, we believe that everybody wants a safe and a thriving neighborhood. And most of us can agree on that. We don't talk about everybody likes puppies. We try to sort it out and say, we're for a multiracial democracy, for a fair economy, and for urgent climate action. Those are our top 3 values. And so most people can relate to that too.
Thank you, Judy. Anyone else?
Anything else about door knocking? I should just add a tag that we aren't all necessarily door knocking for the same candidates.
True.
And we're not here this morning to tell you who to vote for, but you'd be welcome to talk to any of us individually, and we'd be happy to share our personal opinion.
Right.
All right, what else can we do between now and November, what is it, 7th, 8th? The election, to make a difference. Now is your chance, Peter.
Well, put up there, vote forward, VOTEFWD.org, or vote forward, hello at vote forward. FWD can be small. It can,
Actually, you
nope,
can,
just
you can Google vote forward and
either way, vote forward.
tell about it.
Well, I don't want to go on for 20 minutes.
What is it?
What's your plans for next week? Do you know what's next week?
It's not adult ed next week.
Oh, it's not adult ed.
Right. This is it.
Why did Judy Gregg send me and Connie Bell, who's on here,
Because
the note that we're on for October 9th?
that's because the social justice team is coordinating tabling every Sunday between now and the election to hand out information. And so that's not an adult ed session.
Oh, okay.
That's
So we're on next week for talking about or having a table. Vote your values, right? Are you
Right.
on too for housing? So there'll be several. We'll be there. I'll be there with Connie on immigration. And just as one issue, but also I wanted to expand it to voting forward. So I will bring materials on vote forward and to show people and stop by our table next week, and Connie can talk about immigration in the Southwest and the border. And I can talk about immigration and refugees in the courts and immigration court in Minnesota and the Midwest. And we'll have some things to hand out to people if you want to know more about Vote Forward. But Katie, are you doing it this year?
No, I'm not, but it's national, right?
Yeah, it's national, voteforward.org. They did a lot of research on exactly your question, how to incentivize people not likely to vote, historically underrepresented people. And they've come up with the addresses in the 10, 15 most crucial swing states. And they started this in 2020. Katie and I and others wrote lots of letters. In fact, 17 million letters were written to names in those crucial states. 17 million Americans or people, 17 million letters were sent by, I don't know, a couple 100,000 volunteers who did that. All it costs you is the stamps and envelopes. And they send the instructions. They send you the list of names and addresses. They give you a template. You print it out. You print out either 5 or 20 at a time. And I can't walk door to door, and I gave up on door knocking a few years ago, and I gave up on making phone calls, phone banks, because 70% or 80% of every person I called on a phone bank either was the wrong number, or they weren't there, or they never answered, or they chewed me out and swore at me. And
You're not a good ad for phoning.
No, I'm not. But I am trying to make an ad for Vote Forward. But I can, with my aching older body, sit down and write letters. I wrote, I think, 285 letters in 2020, and then another 60 to Georgia for that runoff, and felt like I was making a difference. And a lot of those phrases and they give you hints, and I have examples of what you can say or this kinds of things. Oh, by the way, you don't ever mention any name of any person or party or candidate. You just say the question that they key the letter. It's about this much space. Okay, about this much space, and they give you the template. You print them out. And this year I've done about 70 so far, and to Texas, Michigan, and Florida. And I'm probably going to do Ohio, and I'm not sure. Maybe more to Michigan and Wisconsin and Texas. You feel good. You feel good that you're really doing something specific. They save the letters, you write them and save them. I've got three piles of 20 in each, and a fourth one starting, all wrapped up now in the envelope and the stamp. And I go to the post office and I get the stamps for Black Heritage, for Hispanics, for the one I'm using this year a lot of. I mean, I'll get fairs, Midwestern state fairs stamps. But the one I'm really liking it this year is Title IX. I don't know if you've seen the stamps, but buy a sheet of, or 6. I bought 4 stamps, 4 sheets of Title IX stamps last week, and I'm using them, and they've got a shadow, what do you call it? A shadow.
So Peter, now you're advertising for the postal service, and I'm going to ask you to share the mic with other people who might
Yeah,
have
I will.
more to
Thank you.
say.
All right.
Thank you. And just to say, you're a great ad for Vote Forward and for writing. That's one way to write nationally. Postcards, writing postcards for a candidate is another way to write from home. Nothing you have to go out and do, but you can do it from home, and all the candidates are asking for postcard writers. Then also nationally, similar but different from Vote Forward, is an organization called Force Multiplier that is identifying all over the country important swing races for Congress and saying, here's a good one, here's a good one. And they could use your writing about them. They could also use your calling or writing people you know who live in that state, in that district, to say, this is something I care about. And of course, the one that I bet everybody here has done is sending money. That's the relatively easy one for all of us. So Judy.
Last week at the Haiti benefit that Judy Nelson has done such a great job of being on the board, I was talking with Rod Fisher, who works for the Democrats. His wife is an introvert. I forgot her name. Nancy has written hundreds of postcards. And MoveOn.org and Daily Cause Online are organizing people to do postcards. So it's really effective. There are lots of ways. And I think they give you quite a bit of support. So amen to what you're doing, Peter. And so many organizations are making it easy and giving some support. MoveOn.org, Daily Cause, and all these that have been mentioned too. Writing letters and doing postcards are a great way.
Okay, what are some other ways that you all have been involved in or have thought of? Force Multiplier and Move On. Yeah, League of Women Voters isn't getting people to write postcards, but they are encouraging people to vote. And so that brings us to
vote and putting on candidate forms so you can hear both sides before candidates come. And candidates forms are really important, which have been in our church bulletin to hear both sides of the candidates, but not all candidates come. And that's brand new because for many, many years, both they always came.
That tells you something.
Yeah, I know,
Yes, but what
which is
else do
scary.
people do at a candidate's form besides just
Questions.
questions?
Mhm.
So questions. Asking good leading questions at candidates forum can tell you a lot about both candidates or all candidates. It can also shine a good light on your candidate. If you ask a leading question that you know they're really good on, you can get it out there and get them to speak to it. So going to candidates forums are definitely worthwhile. You can also get a feeling for how many other people come or don't come to candidates forums and get a sense of what's happening.
In terms of the organizations, if you could put Isaiah/Faith in Minnesota up there. I haven't had time yet to door knock, but I know a number of you have, as Judy mentioned, and through their guidance. But previously, they also had candidate forums and really did a great job in addition to what League of Women's Voters was doing. That was very helpful to narrow down the process in the primaries. And right, and as delegates, Faith in Minnesota helped us ask some of those probing questions of all the candidates, and I learned a ton from that, and that was a very healthy process.
Great, thank you. And
Sorry, I was just gonna say, and overall, I think Faith in Minnesota's list of values is very comparable, has a lot of overlap with what you handed out today.
okay, where are we at here? So any other actions you think of that you can take? I'm guessing that most of you, oh, good, Jerry.
Yeah, I'd like to just interject something else here that one of the elections that's greatly overlooked is school boards. And this is where a lot of people start their careers as politicians. And so often we go and we really don't know them that well, but we look at their families and what they're doing, whatnot, and make a decision. But we really need to scrutinize these candidates much closer than what we have in the past.
That's a really good point. And I know in at least 2 districts that a lot of school districts that a lot of St. Lucers live in, there are special elections this year. There wasn't supposed to be a school board election, but somebody resigned or moved away. And so now there is a special election. And my experience was I saw that there was now in Minnetonka, and I thought, how can I find out about these candidates? I didn't know of there being any sort of forum to listen to them. I went to their websites, which were pretty general, pretty safe kinds of statements they were making. So 2 options that I know of to do in that situation. One is to ask other people that are more in the know than I am. And we have some in this church. And the other is to look to our partners. And one of our partners is MCEE, Minnetonka Coalition for Equitable Education, to go to see who they're supporting. And it's very clear on their website who they're supporting. So I thought, all right, if that's who they're for, that's how I'll vote too. And Wayzata has a special school district election this year. I don't know anything about it because it's not mine, so I ignore it. And Eden Prairie also. And we already identified some of the major issues that are up for school boards. What they do is going to have a big difference. And so that's a very important election.
I did this 2 years ago and I'm starting to do it now. And that's looking up every judge on my ballot. And it's painstakingly hard. And they're most of them are unopposed, so it doesn't matter whether you vote for them or not. But 2 years ago, if a judge was, what do you call it? When they hire them. The word, but the judge who appoints them is not of my background, then I would handwrite in a lawyer or another judge.
Ah. Oh, great.
Thank you, Gail. Brent.
I've been in and out, so my apologies if this has been covered, but related to that, in our earlier point about, gosh, it can be hard to get to know all of the electors, and their websites can be bland. So it does take some time to do that research. It is important and helpful to do, and if you are one who puts in that time, it is wonderful to share that gift with other people in your lives. It is not inappropriate to reach out to your peers and say, hey, I know you're busy. There's a lot of down ballot candidates. If you'd like to know about who I'm voting for and why, I'd love to let you know. That's totally appropriate. Even appropriate for me as a pastor of this church to say. That is informed voting. And for myself, that's something that I share with a lot of my neighbors and young parents in my life every year who live in my district in Ward, Minneapolis. Hey, reminder, this is coming up. I'm happy to share who I'm voting with and why. And I usually have a few parents who take me up on it because they know me, they happen to know my views, and they're busy. They don't have time to do this and they feel guilty that they haven't. And so share that gift. Yeah, truly.
So with the primary, I took a photo of my ballot, my mail-in ballot on my phone and talked to some people and we went through it who wanted to know. So that's helpful too.
That's good. And that's a reminder of considering how you're going to vote. Judy, you told me today that sending in your mail-in ballot is a good idea. Why?
Oh, when I went to a meeting that was letting us talk with Keith Ellison, his campaign manager said, for every person who votes early, it saves them 3 houses of canvassing. So they said, vote as soon as you can. But just one caveat, the mail-in ballot has this little witness thing, and they say it's different from last year, and it's more demanding than I thought. So the thing that tripped me up this morning, and luckily I had somebody who trusts me and knows me, Katie is my witness because I live alone. So I brought it to church with me. But it says that they have to verify and sign that they saw a blank ballot. So I had started filling in and it was only me. And so we
So I
have that
lied.
trust. But it's best if you don't write anything on your ballot before you get the signature of your witness. And then they say it's okay to do it privately. They don't have to watch you fill it out, but they have to verify that you had a ballot that hadn't been pre-voted by some, of those horrible fraudsters that are everywhere.
That's very helpful. Thanks, Judy.
And if you don't want to mail it in, we took our ballots over to
City
City
Hall.
Hall. And it took about a minute, didn't it? It was very, very quick. And we just signed right there at the window and we filled out the rest of it. And they took the ballots and it was over and done with. So it was very painless.
And it felt safest because we'd had so much trouble with mail and all that.
Uh-huh. So there are lots of options. If you haven't requested a mail-in ballot, you still have options. It's not too late to request one. You just have to make sure to fill it out and mail it in so that it gets there by election day. But you also could go to your city hall and vote there. They'll give you a ballot. You can vote right on the spot. And of course you can go on election day and you can vote early by going and filling out a ballot. So there are plenty of options for voting. And the handout that we gave you has a QR code. And some of you know how to use those. It's not my forte. But it also has instructions of when you get there, either if you use the QR code or if you just go to the website, where to go, that will tell you not only what's going to be on your ballot, exactly the whole ballot, all the things you'll get to vote for, and where you vote, your new district, your new congressional district, your new state Senate district, state House district, and county commissioner, if your county commissioner district has changed, which some of them have, and your school board. So all of those are right there. And that's another thing to encourage other people to go ahead and look up. I think we're all probably voting at the same polling place where we always did, but the number of our district is different. And
We have that map.
yeah, there's a map.
When you did in the back of the shirt.
There are maps down there that if it's easier for you to look on a map. But in any event, that little handout on the bottom of your agenda can be helpful. Plus the questions that the social justice team put together are useful at candidate forums. Some of the candidate forums say you can submit questions ahead of time, so then they'll comb through them. So you don't have to stand up and ask your question. You don't get to stand up and ask your question. But those are also questions that are useful to talk to other people. Brennan said, talk to your friends. Yes. And in our case, talk to your kids, because are they all voting and are they all paying attention? So other options of things we could be doing between now and election day to make a difference? Okay, well, you've heard from a number of people who are doing some of these things. And so here's our request to you. Will you think, all of us, what's one more thing I can do than what I've done already? And then tell someone else in this room what you're going to commit to do. One more thing. One idea that you heard go by today, you think, oh, well, I could do that. Do you remember them, all the many suggestions? Postcards, letters, talking to your relatives, sending money, going to candidate forums, researching candidates, talking to people in the know, looking at organizations that you trust.
Passing on your research.
What?
Passing on your research.
Passing on your research to other people. Oh, now they're leaving.
We need to set up your coffee.
All right, thank you. We appreciate that. You can tell each other your commitments as you go down there to set up the coffee.
Thank you. One thing that was left off of there is policing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was left off of the
Mhm. Safety, police.
safety, policing's programs,
Mhm.
working with the police.
Mhm. Public safety.
Yeah.
It's a big issue.
Right, and the programs involving the mental health issues along with the policing. I'm involved in a program that is doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, Hennepin County Sheriff is and Attorney General. Those are two big races that affect a lot of us.
Programming.
Peter.
Well, I just apologize for my passion about vote forward, but just yesterday, they came out with, they got a new one that you can send letters to, in the crucial states, secretaries of state.
Yes.
Secretaries of State are hot
Now, the new
races.
thing they give you an option for is writing letters to, on behalf of, to people in terms of the Secretary of State in that state.
Yes, I have seen research that says at least 1 in 2 or 63% of Secretary of State candidates are election deniers for 2020. So something to be very aware about when you go to the ballot box. Anything else? Daryl.
I would just say earlier, you talked about those of us who are, not me, those of us in our community that are more informed. And I thank you two for putting this on today, but you two are great resources. I look to Faith in Minnesota for guidance, but you two, I'm gonna continue to check with you what in the research you've done to help us be better informed on my choices.
Thank you, Daryl. We'll do our best. You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you all, and thank you for what you're going to commit to do one more thing between now and the election and to make a difference. We can make a difference.
So you can hear both sides if both sides come.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Talk to your friends. Wherever. Oh, okay. I don't know where
Yeah, that's right. Right there.
Okay.